So, good morning, students. I hope all of you are perfectly fine. So, today we'll discuss something of extreme importance to understand literature. So, we'll discuss today literary devices. You must have seen in literature there are direct comparisons, there are indirect comparisons. Sometimes a statement at surface level says something else, but the intended meaning is altogether different. Sometimes there are contrastive statements which look illogical at a surface level but have a deeper meaning. Uh, there are expressions where inanimate objects are addressed as if those objects are persons. There are sound words. There is a picture in words. A part of an object represents something, like a crown representing king. Dove is used to represent peace. Sometimes something is overstated. What are these all expressions and why are these used in literature? That we get to know when we know the literary devices. So, literary devices are many, but there are a few which are very frequently used in literature, and these are simile, metaphor, irony. Irony further is of three parts: verbal, dramatic, situational, paradox, oxymoron, personification, onomatopoeia, image, pun, synecdoche, metonymy, symbol, hyperbole, etc. So let's discuss them in detail. Let's take up the simile first. Simile is a comparison between two dissimilar objects. So dissimilar, the objects which are not the same, having some similarity, one or the other, by using the word as or like. As an example, he fights like a lion. So he fights like a lion, as a lion does. So the one quality is similar to lion, that is of fighting. Then she looks as fresh as a daisy. So one quality, that is of freshness of a daisy, and her looks has been compared. So there is one similarity: she is neither flower nor is flower a girl, but one quality is similar, that is of freshness. Another is metaphor. It is a direct comparison between two dissimilar objects. That means here as or like are not used. Here two objects become one, same, where all the qualities of one are likened to another. There is no use of as or like. He is a lion. So when I say he is a lion, he walks like a lion, he roars like a lion, his eyes express fire like a lion, he has majesticity of a lion, and he fights like a lion. Okay, then he is a real diamond, then he is precious like a diamond, he is shiny like a diamond, he is ornamental like a diamond. Similarly, she is a treasure for her family. She is safeguarded. She is valued. She is a priority. Fine. All the qualities. While in the previous example, she looks as fresh as a daisy. Only one quality has been compared. She is as valuable as a treasure. Then it would have been a simile. Fine. Next uh, is symbol. So symbol is an object or an activity or an animal that stands for something else, like a bird. Dove stands for peace, rose stands for beauty, black color stands for evil, white color stands for peace. Similarly, folding hand in Indian culture symbolize showing respect. Similarly, touching feet in Indian culture symbolize respect. Image. Image is a picture in words that can be perceived through five senses. The sense to touch, okay, like the feeling of touching, like rough surface, smooth surface, hot surface. Taste, spicy, sweet, chili. Smell of a rose, stinging lanes. Hear, sound image, like sound of beating drum, moving car, gushing water. And see, color images, shape images, like round, black, blue, green, white. So when images are used in a poem or a prose, we notice as if visual is moving in front of our eyes. So such literature is called sensuous literature, which appeals to the five senses more. Like John Keats used to uh, write sensuous poetry. Here there are texture images like rough, smooth, spicy, sweet taste images, smell of roses, aroma of a dish like food, sound of a drum, sound image, black or blue color, color images. Imagery. Using these images as similes or metaphors in modern literary word to is referred to as imagery. Like dove is a symbol, but it is a word picture as well, so it will be an example of imagery. Hyperbole. A figure of speech that contains an exaggeration, overstatement for emphasis or stress. Like, I have not seen you for ages. Ages means many years. Okay. It can be, I have not seen you for a century, but very rarely people live for a century. But this is just a way of conveying that I have not seen you for a long time. As old as hills means very old. Another hyperbolic expression is the one you have gone through in the Lost Spring, garbage is gold. Now, pun is a word which expresses two shades of meaning. Like a word is used in a manner to have two or more possible meaning. Dim class. So here dim class means the class is dim in light and dim in spirit. Now we'll discuss irony. This word irony has come from the word iron, a character in Greek mythology who used to speak ironic sentences where the meaning intended was opposite uh, to the sentence spoken. Like verbal irony, when meaning intended means what you want to convey is opposite, is in contrast to the sentence stated, means what you have said, or meaning is opposite to the words. When to a latecomer you are saying you are very much on time, you are actually trying to convey that you are late, but the way is indirect. Now, situational irony, that is very common in novels or in plays or in day to day life, even in serials, in movies. We come across situation, we watch situation where characters expect something else, but something different happens. When a situation develops opposite to your expectations, means what you think does not happen. You planned a different way, but something happened entirely, was entirely different. For example, a student prepares in a certain way for the exam for success. She does not succeed. He was sure that he would be succeeding. A character is expected to act in a certain way after some realization, like a character in a movie realizes that he was wrong, he was a sinner, and the audience expects now he will not commit a sin, but he again commits a sin, so that becomes a situational irony. Dramatic irony. This is very common in day-to-day life also, in literature also, in movies, dramas, serials. It's very regularly used and very effectively used when a character or characters do not know what the reader and the audience know or knows. A character says to another, "You can trust me." Means two characters are talking. One says to another, "You can trust me." But the third character, the friend of the first or the second present there, knows the one who is seeking trust cannot be trusted. Means the one who is saying "you can trust me" cannot be trusted because he is a cheat and he knows why that person is so. But the audience does not know this. The character who is being spoken to does not know this. Fine. Or the audience knows, characters do not know. So let's now discuss synecdoche, metonymy, and onomatopoeia. Some people interchange metonymy and synecdoche, but there is a thin difference. So these two are different, not the same, and cannot be used synonymously. Synecdoche means when part represents the whole, like hands stands for laborers, chair stands for the boss, as in the 50 heads for 50 kettles, or all hands on deck refers to all sailors on the deck. Metonymy, it is Greek word for name change. The name of one thing is used for another with which it is commonly associated. Like that substitute name of the related object, person or idea for the subject at hand, like stage for the theatrical profession. We say that he is from the stage, that means he is a theater artist or a stage artist. The crown for monarchy, and the bench has given the judgment means the judiciary has given the judgment. Onomatopoeia. In this figure of speech, sound reflects the sense, like whiz, bow wow stands for dog, hiss stands for the snake. Now we'll discuss paradox. Paradox is a statement which is clearly self-contradictory. That means it contradicts itself. It is against the previous statement. Like that seems illogical, irrational, foolish. Yet lies behind this surface foolishness, absurdity means foolishness, meaninglessness, a meaningful truth. Love your enemies. So it is paradoxical. How can it be logically accepted? Because generally we hate our enemies. But when the hidden meaning is because your enemies teach you great lessons. When you fail, you prepare to sail high. The logical meaning looks to be strange. So when you fail, generally you are sad, you are down and out. How can you sail high? Because when you fail, you realize the importance of success. This is what the author may intend to convey. And then you work harder and you sail higher. That means you scale higher heights, greater heights. Oxymoron, it combines two usually contradictory terms in a compressed paradox. Means it is a short expression, a phrase which looks illogical but has deeper meaning, like living death. Means sometimes we wish to convey that the person is living a miserable life. He is dying every day, so that can be referred to as living death. Wise fool. So sometimes some characters are designed to be presented as fools, but they convey witty thoughts, the thoughts which have profound wisdom. Like in Shakespearean plays, there were fools a character was created which would play the role of a fool, but he would observe the situation very closely and give telling comments. So that way, a wise fool. Sad joy. So again, it has meaning in context. A situation at the surface level may appear to be joyous, but when observed closely, context is understood, we realize that joy is superficial because the real source of joy, some family member, is physically not present there. So the joy becomes sad because it makes the vacuum stronger. Cold fire. So the fire, say, of kindness has made the fire of hatred cold. So that is cooling fire. So satire, it is a literary genre. This word is pronounced as genre and not genre, in which vices, that is, evils and follies, means foolishnesses, of a society are highlighted, arousing the emotions of pity, laughter, contempt, and indignation, which means anger. The sole purpose, the only purpose behind this attempt is to correct these evils and follies. So sometimes in some genres, evils and follies of a society are highlighted. It may be a movie, it may be a poem, it may be a novel, it may be a serial, and the measure is corrective in approach. The purpose is not only just to criticize. Fine. So there are some serials, some movies, some poems which satirize, which highlight the follies of the system, the drawbacks of the system. A political satire. In a political satire, vices and follies of those who are in power, like kings, political leaders, high ranking officers, are highlighted. The Tale of a Melon City, Tiger King are the examples. So, Tale of the Melon City you have studied in class 11th, the Tiger King you will be studying in class 12th. Personification. In it, human traits, characteristics are associated with or to non-living objects. You treat them as a person, like this fan is tired. You're addressing the fan as if the fan is a person. This table knows my trouble, but you, my friend, don't ever try to. So just uh, giving an emotive touch to an inanimate object and treating it like a person. So that is personifying an inanimate or non-living objects. Transferred epithet. Epithet is an adjective which is transferred from a noun to which it belongs. Noun here can be a person or a non-living being. Generally, from a person to a non-living object, it is transferred. It basically changes a noun. For example, when you say, I had a wonderful day, here the day was not wonderful, but the experiences that you had made that had made you feel wonderful made your day wonderful. So, similarly, I had a sleepless night. So, the night was not sleepless, but you were. So, the attribute that is sleepless is transferred from a human to night. Clear? Similarly, maddening drum. The drum is not maddening, but the person beats it in such a way that it has maddening effect. Repetition. A word or a phrase is repeated for special emphasis, special stress, like so easy means it was very easy. In the last lesson, this expression was there. And smile and smile and smile. This example occurs in the poem My Mother at 66 by Kamala Das. So she is repeating the word in her poem to express the wideness of the smile which she uses to hide her apprehension. Refrain. It's repetition of a line after every stanza in a poem, like in the poem titled Brook by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Uh, Men may come, men may go, but I go on forever. Invocation, it is an appeal or request for help addressed to an authority or deity. It is usually in the beginning of the poem, like governor, inspector, visitor, take these children out of this world. Okay, so here it is to governor, inspector, and visitor. They are being invoked to take an action. Apostrophe, it's a figure of speech in which a thing, a place, an abstract idea, a dead or absent person is addressed as if present and capable of understanding, like in Julius Caesar, or judgment, thou art fled to brutish beast. So Caesar here is addressing judgment. So the next literary device is alliteration. It is a repetition of a sound in a sequence in a sentence. Like far, far from. Here first sound has been repeated. Wild west wind. Here was sound is repeated. When a vowel sound is repeated, it is called assonance, as in ask for arms and art of war. So here a sound has been repeated. Illness of intelligent informer. So here e sound has been repeated. When a consonant sound is repeated, it is called consonance, like as in clean clothes. So here k sound has been repeated. When we win. In this example, o sound has been repeated. Thank you.